I stood behind my front door at 5 in the morning, listening to my daughter in law Ashley screaming and the piercing sound of drills against my lock. My heart pounded, but my hands remained steady. I had been expecting this moment for weeks, ever since I discovered the horrifying truth about my son Marcus and Ashley's elaborate plot to steal my deceased husband's family estate. The drilling intensified, metal grinding against metal in the pre-dawn darkness. I positioned myself calmly, knowing what Ashley and those locksmiths were about to see would destroy everything they thought they knew about this supposedly helpless old widow. 3 months earlier, my life looked completely different. I was Stephanie Walsh, a 67-year-old widow trying to navigate my new reality after losing my beloved husband Robert to pancreatic cancer 2 years prior. Robert and I had built our life together in a stunning Victorian home worth $1.2 million in the hills of Portland, Oregon. The house represented 40 years of marriage dreams fulfilled and memories that filled every corner with warmth. My only child, Marcus, 34 years old, had married Ashley Brennan 2 years before Robert's death. From the beginning, Ashley seemed like the daughter I never had. She arrived at our door every Sunday with homemade lasagna, called me 3 times a week to check on my well-being, and insisted on driving me to grocery stores and medical appointments. Her blonde hair was always perfectly styled, her smile genuine and bright, and her concern for my welfare appeared absolutely sincere. Ashley worked part-time as a receptionist at a dental office, which gave her flexible hours to spend with me. She would sit at my kitchen table for hours, listening to stories about Robert's construction business and our early years of marriage. She seemed genuinely interested in family history, asking detailed questions about property deeds, insurance policies, and Robert's business partnerships. I appreciated having someone who cared about preserving our family legacy. Marcus worked long hours as a licensed electrician, often arriving home exhausted and covered in dust from construction sites. During family dinners, he seemed withdrawn and tired, letting Ashley carry most conversations. She would rub his shoulders and speak for him when I asked about his work projects or future plans. At the time, I thought she was being supportive of her hard-working husband. The first subtle changes began about 6 months after Robert's funeral. Ashley started mentioning small concerns about my living situation. She would comment on how dangerous it seemed for an older woman to live alone in such a large house. She pointed out steep staircases, slippery bathroom tiles, and the isolation of our hillside location. Her suggestions felt caring, not manipulative. During one particular Sunday dinner, Ashley brought up something that made my blood run cold. She claimed Robert had confided in Marcus about his true wishes for the family home. According to Ashley, Robert had expressed concerns about leaving me with such a financial burden and had mentioned wanting the house to eventually go to Marcus and Ashley, not me directly. I was stunned. Robert never mentioned any such thing during our countless conversations about his will and estate planning. We had worked with attorney Elizabeth Morrison to ensure everything was clearly documented, leaving the house and all assets directly to me, with the understanding that Marcus would inherit everything upon my death. Ashley's voice remained gentle as she continued her revelation. She claimed there might be a second will, that Robert had hidden one that reflected his actual wishes, rather than the standard document we had filed with the probate court. She suggested we should search through Robert's personal papers more thoroughly to find this mysterious second will. The conversation left me shaken and confused. Marcus nodded along with Ashley's story, but seemed uncomfortable avoiding direct eye contact with me. I began questioning my own memories of conversations with Robert about our estate planning. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying Ashley's words and trying to remember any hint that Robert had harbored concerns about leaving me the house. Nothing came to mind. Robert had been crystal clear about wanting me to live comfortably in our home for the rest of my life. The following week, Ashley offered to help me organize Robert's remaining personal belongings. She was particularly interested in searching through his home office, where he had kept important papers and business documents. I agreed, grateful for her assistance with what felt like an overwhelming task. Ashley spent hours going through desk drawers, filing cabinets, and storage boxes. She asked detailed questions about Robert's business relationships, banking arrangements, and investment accounts. She seemed especially focused on finding any documents that might contradict the official will. One afternoon, while Ashley was searching through Robert's desk, I decided to clean out a drawer that she hadn't yet examined. Hidden behind a stack of old tax returns, I found something that made my heart stop. It was a will written in handwriting that looked like Ashley's, dated 3 months after Robert's death, claiming to reflect his true final wishes regarding the family estate. The document was amateur and obviously fake. The legal language was incorrect, Robert's signature was completely wrong, and most damning of all, it was dated after his death. According to this forged will, Robert wanted Marcus and Ashley to inherit the house immediately, with me receiving only a small monthly allowance to live elsewhere. My hands trembled as I realized what I was looking at. Ashley had been planning to contest Robert's legitimate will using this crude forgery. She had been studying our family finances and property details not out of loving interest, but to steal everything Robert had worked to build. I carefully photographed the document with my phone and placed it back exactly where I found it. Ashley couldn't know that I had discovered her scheme, at least not yet. I needed time to think and plan my next steps. When Ashley returned to the office, she asked cheerfully about my progress with the drawer. I smiled and told her I had found nothing important, just old tax documents. She seemed relieved and continued her search through other areas. That evening, after Ashley left, I sat in Robert's chair and stared at the photographs of the forged will on my phone. The woman I had trusted like a daughter, who had eaten at my table and listened to my stories, had been scheming against me from the very beginning. The realization felt like a physical blow to my chest. I began to understand that Ashley's constant attention and care had been a calculated performance. She had been gathering information about our family finances, learning about Robert's assets, and positioning herself to steal everything we had built together. The thought made me feel sick and utterly betrayed. Ashley's next phase of manipulation began 2 weeks after I discovered the forged will. She started expressing concerns about my health and memory, suggesting I should see a doctor for regular checkups. She had found the perfect physician for my needs, she claimed, Dr. Patricia Brennan, who specialized in geriatric care and happened to be Ashley's cousin. Dr. Brennan operated from a small private clinic in downtown Portland. During my first appointment, she asked extensive questions about my memory, daily routines, and ability to manage household tasks. Ashley sat beside me during the examination, frequently interrupting to provide examples of my supposed confusion or forgetfulness. The doctor seemed particularly interested in episodes that Ashley described, but that I couldn't remember experiencing. Ashley told detailed stories about finding me wandering the house at night, forgetting to turn off stove burners, and being unable to recall recent conversations. These incidents were complete fabrications, but Ashley delivered them with such convincing concern that even I began to doubt my own memory. Dr. Brennan prescribed what she called specialized vitamins to help with age-related cognitive decline. The pills were large and yellow, and I was instructed to take 2 every morning with breakfast. Ashley volunteered to pick up the prescription and manage my medication schedule to ensure I never missed a dose. Within days of starting the supposed vitamins, I began experiencing troubling symptoms. My thinking became foggy and unclear, as if I was viewing the world through thick glass. Simple tasks like balancing my checkbook or following television programs became surprisingly difficult. My coordination suffered, causing me to stumble occasionally or drop items I thought I had secure grips on. Ashley noticed these changes immediately and expressed deep concern to Marcus. She called him at work to report my declining condition, describing episodes of confusion and disorientation that seemed to be worsening rapidly. She suggested that living alone was becoming dangerous for me and that we needed to consider alternative housing arrangements. The changes in my mental state frightened me, but Ashley assured me this was normal for women my age. She brought medical articles about age-related cognitive decline and explained that the vitamins would eventually help, but the process would take time. She increased her visits to twice daily, checking on my well-being and ensuring I was taking my medication consistently. Ashley began creating situations that made me appear incompetent to outside observers. She would hide my car keys in unusual locations, then call Marcus in panic when I spent time searching for them, claiming I was wandering around the house confused and disoriented. She removed items from my refrigerator and expressed concern to neighbors about my forgetting to eat properly or maintain basic self-care routines. One afternoon, Ashley called 911 claiming I had fallen in my bathroom and was lying on the floor confused. When paramedics arrived, I was sitting normally in my living room with no memory of falling or calling for help. Ashley explained to the emergency responders that I often forgot accidents immediately after they occurred, which she claimed was a sign of serious cognitive impairment. The paramedics were kind but concerned, asking detailed questions about my medical history and current medications. Ashley provided most of the answers, describing my rapid mental decline and episodes of dangerous confusion. They recommended that I not be left alone for extended periods and suggested follow-up care with Dr. Brennan. 3 weeks into taking the yellow pills, I experienced a moment of clarity that changed everything. I was preparing to take my morning medication when I accidentally dropped the bottle, scattering pills across my kitchen floor. As I bent to collect them, I noticed something that made my blood freeze. These weren't vitamins at all. The pills had identifying numbers stamped into them, and when I looked up those numbers online, I discovered they were haloperidol, a powerful antipsychotic medication used to treat severe mental illness. In healthy individuals, this drug could cause exactly the symptoms I was experiencing: confusion, disorientation, memory problems, and motor coordination difficulties. I realized with horror that Ashley and Dr. Brennan were chemically inducing cognitive impairment to make me appear mentally incompetent. They were literally drugging me to build a medical case that would support whatever legal action they were planning. From that moment forward, I stopped taking the pills entirely, pretending to swallow them when Ashley was present, secretly spitting them out later. I began keeping Robert's old voice recorder hidden in my sweater pocket, recording every conversation I had with Ashley about my health, my property, and my future living arrangements. Within a week of stopping the medication, my thinking cleared dramatically. The fog lifted from my mind, and I regained my normal coordination and memory function. But I continued pretending to be confused and disoriented whenever Ashley was present, playing the role she expected while secretly documenting her manipulation. During one recorded conversation, Ashley discussed my condition with Marcus over the phone while she thought I was napping upstairs. She described my symptoms as worsening rapidly and suggested they needed to act quickly to protect my assets before I became completely incapacitated. She mentioned meetings with lawyers and doctors to discuss guardianship options. The word guardianship sent chills through my body. If Ashley and Marcus gained legal guardianship over me, they would control all of my assets, including the house bank accounts and insurance policies. I would become essentially powerless, dependent on their decisions for every aspect of my life. I realized that Ashley's entire plan was becoming clear. First, she would use the forged will to contest Robert's legitimate estate planning. Second, she would use falsified medical evidence to establish my mental incompetence. Finally, she would gain guardianship and control over all family assets, leaving me with nothing. The depth of her betrayal was breathtaking. This woman had spent 2 years studying our family, learning our vulnerabilities, and positioning herself to destroy everything Robert and I had built together. She had turned my own son against me through lies and manipulation, and she was using the medical system to abuse and exploit my trust. But now I knew the truth, and I was going to fight back. Ashley's next move came exactly 1 week later when she arrived at my house with a man she introduced as Harold Zimmer, an estate planning attorney. She explained that Mr. Zimmer was there to help me update my will for clarity and ensure my wishes were properly documented. Given my recent memory problems, she felt it was important to have professional legal guidance. Mr. Zimmer was a thin man in his 50s with gray hair and wire-rimmed glasses. He carried a leather briefcase and spoke in a calm, professional tone that immediately put me on guard. I continued playing my role as a confused elderly woman while secretly recording our entire conversation through the device hidden in my sweater. The attorney asked me basic questions about my current address, the date, and recent events in my life. Ashley kept interrupting to help me remember details, actually making me appear more confused and disoriented than I would have seemed on my own. She would provide incorrect information and then correct herself, creating the impression that my memory was unreliable. Mr. Zimmer seemed particularly interested in my understanding of my financial situation and property ownership. He asked detailed questions about the house's value, my banking relationships, and my ability to manage household expenses independently. Throughout the conversation, Ashley provided commentary about my declining abilities and growing confusion about basic financial matters. As the meeting progressed, I realized that Mr. Zimmer wasn't actually there to help me update my will at all. He was conducting a mental competency evaluation, documenting my responses and behavior to build a legal case for my incapacity. Every question was designed to reveal cognitive impairment or poor judgment regarding financial decisions. After Mr. Zimmer left, Ashley stayed to discuss what she called our next steps for my care and safety. She explained that the attorney had recommended additional medical evaluation to determine whether I was capable of living independently and making important decisions about my property and finances. That evening, I discovered something devastating while searching through papers that Ashley had left on my kitchen table. Hidden among routine documents was a partially completed guardianship petition listing Marcus as the proposed guardian and me as an allegedly incapacitated person requiring legal supervision. The petition included detailed allegations about my mental decline, inability to manage finances, and dangerous episodes of confusion and disorientation. Every incident that Ashley had fabricated or exaggerated was listed as evidence of my incompetence. Dr. Brennan had provided a medical evaluation supporting these claims, stating that I was suffering from rapid onset dementia and posed a danger to myself. Most shocking of all, the documents indicated that a preliminary guardianship hearing had already been scheduled for the following Tuesday, just 5 days away. If Marcus was granted guardianship, he would have immediate legal authority to make decisions about my medical care, living situation, and financial assets. The next morning, Ashley brought a property appraiser to my house, claiming we needed to assess the home's value for insurance purposes. She explained that my insurance company required an updated appraisal following Robert's death, and this was simply routine paperwork that needed to be completed. I watched from my living room window as the appraiser photographed every room measured square footage and evaluated the condition of our Victorian home's unique architectural features. Ashley accompanied him throughout the process, pointing out valuable details like original hardwood floors, antique fixtures, and the property's premium hillside location. Later that afternoon, I overheard a phone conversation between Ashley and Marcus that revealed the true purpose of the appraisal. Ashley was speaking loudly in my kitchen while she thought I was napping upstairs, and her words made my blood run cold. She told Marcus that the house had been appraised at $1.4 million higher than they had originally estimated. She had already identified a private buyer who was willing to purchase the property immediately after the guardianship was established, allowing them to avoid public listing and complete the sale quickly. Ashley explained their timeline to Marcus. The guardianship hearing was scheduled for Tuesday. The house sale would close the following Friday, and they would split the proceeds equally. With their share of the money, they could afford to purchase their dream home in San Diego, California, where Ashley had always wanted to live. Marcus expressed some guilt about the speed of their plan, worrying that moving so quickly after gaining guardianship might look suspicious. Ashley dismissed his concerns, reminding him that I was declining rapidly and would be much happier in a care facility where trained professionals could monitor my condition 24 hours a day. She assured Marcus that this arrangement was actually in my best interest since I would receive excellent medical care while they managed my assets responsibly. She painted a picture of my future that involved a clean, safe nursing home where I would be surrounded by other people my age and wouldn't have to worry about the burdens of home ownership. The callousness in Ashley's voice was chilling. She spoke about destroying my life as if she were planning a vacation, discussing my future imprisonment in a care facility with the same enthusiasm she might use to describe a restaurant reservation. I realized that I had less than 1 week to expose their conspiracy and prevent the guardianship from being granted. If I failed, I would lose everything Robert and I had built together, and I would spend my remaining years trapped in an institution while Ashley and Marcus enjoyed the proceeds from selling our family home. That night, I began secretly copying every document I could find related to the guardianship case, the forged will, and the property appraisal. I used Robert's old scanner in his home office, working late at night, when Ashley wasn't expected to visit. I stored copies of everything in a safety deposit box that Ashley didn't know existed, ensuring that evidence of her scheme would be preserved even if something happened to the originals. I also began researching guardianship law in Oregon, learning about my rights during the legal process and the standards that courts use to determine mental competency. I discovered that I had the right to legal representation and could challenge the guardianship petition if I could demonstrate that the allegations against me were false. But I needed professional help to fight this battle, and I needed it quickly. Ashley and Dr. Brennan had created convincing medical documentation of my alleged cognitive decline, and Mr. Zimmer had compiled legal evidence supporting their claims about my incompetence. I was running out of time and I was running out of options. The next morning, I made the most important decision of this entire nightmare. I called Robert's former business partner, Tom Rodriguez, who had remained a close family friend after Robert's death. I explained that I needed a recommendation for a private investigator, but I couldn't give him details about why. Tom recommended Janet Russo, a former police detective who now ran her own investigation firm, specializing in elder abuse and financial fraud cases. When I called Janet's office, her assistant scheduled an emergency consultation for that same afternoon. I met Janet at a small coffee shop downtown, far from my neighborhood where Ashley might see us together. Janet was a woman in her 40s, with short brown hair and intelligent eyes that seemed to see through deception immediately. I paid her retainer fee from a checking account that Ashley didn't know about, one that Robert had established for household emergencies. I told Janet everything: the forged will, the medication scheme, the guardianship petition, and the planned property sale. I played recordings of Ashley's conversations and showed her copies of the falsified medical documents. Janet listened carefully, taking detailed notes and asking specific questions about timeline and evidence. Janet explained that what Ashley was doing constituted elder abuse, medical fraud, and conspiracy to commit theft. The scheme involved multiple crimes and showed clear premeditation and planning. However, she warned me that proving these allegations would require substantial evidence, and that Ashley had been careful to create documentation supporting her claims about my mental decline. Janet agreed to conduct a comprehensive background investigation on Ashley, Dr. Brennan, and Harold Zimmer. She would research their personal histories, professional records, and any previous involvement in similar cases. She promised to work quickly, understanding that we had less than 1 week before the guardianship hearing. 3 days later, Janet called me with information that made my stomach turn. Ashley's background was even worse than I had imagined. She had been married twice before, both times to older men with substantial assets. Her first husband, Donald Chen, had died in what was officially ruled an accidental fall down basement stairs. However, Janet discovered that Donald had changed his will just 6 months before his death, leaving everything to Ashley instead of his adult children from a previous marriage. Donald's children had challenged the will, claiming Ashley had manipulated their father, but they lacked sufficient evidence to prove their case. Ashley's second husband, William Rodriguez, was currently residing in a memory care facility in Seattle, diagnosed with early onset dementia at age 58. Ashley had gained power of attorney over William's finances just before his diagnosis and had sold his house and business shortly after he was institutionalized. William's siblings had tried to intervene, but medical records supported Ashley's claims about his mental incompetence. Janet's investigation revealed a disturbing pattern. Ashley targeted older men with assets, married them quickly, and then used medical and legal manipulation to gain control of their wealth. In each case, she had worked with the same network of corrupt professionals who provided falsified documentation supporting her claims. Dr. Patricia Brennan had an equally troubling history. Janet discovered that Dr. Brennan had previously practiced in Nevada under her maiden name, Patricia Sullivan. Her medical license had been suspended for 18 months following an investigation into falsified medical records in guardianship cases. She had moved to Oregon and obtained a new license under her married name, effectively hiding her disciplinary history from Oregon medical authorities. Harold Zimmer's background revealed a pattern of representing families in suspicious guardianship cases where elderly individuals lost their assets shortly after being declared incompetent. Janet found 3 other cases in which Mr. Zimmer had helped establish guardianships that resulted in quick property sales and asset transfers. In each case, the alleged incompetent person had been moved to institutional care immediately after losing legal control of their finances. But Janet's most shocking discovery came when she researched Ashley's marriage to Marcus. Public records revealed that Ashley and Marcus had actually been married for 4 years, not 2, as Ashley had claimed to me. This meant Ashley was already Marcus's wife when she first befriended me during Robert's cancer diagnosis. Their entire relationship with me had been premeditated and calculated from the very beginning. Ashley hadn't fallen in love with Marcus and then developed affection for his family. She had identified Marcus as her pathway to my assets and had been planning this scheme since before Robert's death. Janet's final discovery was the most terrifying. Ashley had taken out a life insurance policy on me 6 months earlier, listing herself as the beneficiary through a fraudulent claim of financial dependency. The policy was worth $500,000 and would pay out in addition to the proceeds from selling the house. Ashley wasn't just planning to steal my assets and imprison me in a care facility. She was planning to kill me. Janet provided me with a professional recording device disguised as a medical alert pendant, allowing me to capture higher quality audio of Ashley's conversations. She also installed hidden cameras around my property positioned to record any attempts at break-ins or property damage. Janet warned me that Ashley was becoming increasingly desperate as the guardianship hearing approached. Desperate people took desperate actions, and I needed to be extremely careful about my safety over the next few days. She recommended that I contact the Adult Protective Services Division of the Oregon Department of Human Services and file a report about the elder abuse I was experiencing. She also suggested that I hire my own attorney to challenge the guardianship petition and present evidence of Ashley's fraud to the court. But most importantly, Janet advised me to consider my physical safety. Ashley had already shown herself capable of drugging me without my knowledge and falsifying medical records to support her claims. Given her history with previous husbands, Janet feared that Ashley might escalate to more direct forms of violence if she felt her plan was threatened. That night, I sat in Robert's chair and tried to process everything Janet had told me. The woman who had sat at my kitchen table, who had listened to stories about my marriage, who had pretended to care about preserving family memories, was actually a serial predator who had killed at least one previous husband and destroyed multiple families. She had been studying me for years, learning my habits and vulnerabilities, while planning to steal everything Robert and I had built together. She had turned my own son against me through lies and manipulation, convincing him that stealing from his mother was actually an act of love and protection. But now I had evidence of her crimes, professional help in fighting back, and a clear understanding of what I was dealing with. Ashley thought she was manipulating a helpless, confused old woman. She had no idea that I was fighting back with every resource at my disposal. The guardianship hearing was scheduled for Tuesday morning. I had 3 days to prepare my counterattack. Saturday morning brought a crisis that accelerated everything. Ashley called Marcus at his construction site, claiming she had found me unconscious on my bathroom floor. I was actually in my garden tending to Robert's roses when I heard sirens approaching my house. When paramedics arrived, they found me sitting on my front porch, perfectly alert, and wondering why emergency responders were at my home. Ashley met them at my front door, explaining breathlessly that she had discovered me collapsed and unresponsive just 20 minutes earlier. She told the paramedics that I must have recovered consciousness after she called for help, but that I appeared confused and disoriented. She claimed I had no memory of falling or of the events leading up to her finding me unconscious. She showed them my pill bottles, explaining that I was being treated for dementia and often forgot accidents immediately after they occurred. The paramedics were professional, but concerned, asking detailed questions about my medical history and recent episodes of confusion. Ashley answered most of their questions, describing my rapid cognitive decline and episodes of dangerous disorientation. She had printouts of Dr. Brennan's medical evaluations ready to show them, supporting her claims about my deteriorating condition. What the paramedics didn't know was that Ashley had secretly given me a double dose of the haloperidol medication in my morning orange juice. I was actually feeling dizzy and disoriented, not from any medical emergency, but from the drugs Ashley had slipped into my breakfast drink. At the hospital, Ashley told doctors about my worsening dementia symptoms and provided Dr. Brennan's falsified medical records as background information. She expressed concern about my ability to live safely alone and suggested that I needed immediate evaluation for institutional care. Ashley and Marcus spoke in whispered conversations outside my hospital room, thinking I was too sedated to understand their words. But I was wearing Janet's recording device, and I heard every detail of their accelerated timeline. Ashley told Marcus that they couldn't wait until Tuesday's guardianship hearing. My behavior was becoming too unpredictable, and she worried that I might do something dangerous to myself or damage the house before they could gain legal control. She wanted to have me admitted to a psychiatric facility for evaluation, which would allow them to claim I had abandoned the property and speed up the guardianship process. Marcus seemed uncomfortable with how quickly things were moving, but Ashley reminded him about the life insurance policy and the financial freedom they would gain from completing their plan. She painted pictures of their future life in California, describing the beachfront home they could afford and the business opportunities available to them there. While Ashley was filling out paperwork with hospital staff, I pretended to be heavily sedated, but actually slipped out of my hospital bed and walked to a side exit. Hospital security was focused on other areas, and I was able to leave without being noticed. I took a taxi home and found Ashley's car parked in my driveway. Through my living room window, I could see her inside my house, going through Robert's belongings and loading several valuable antiques into cardboard boxes. She was stealing family heirlooms while she thought I was safely contained at the hospital. I walked through my front door and found Ashley in Robert's office, wrapping his vintage clock collection in newspaper. When she saw me, her face went completely white, and she dropped the clock she was holding, which shattered on the hardwood floor. For the first time since this nightmare began, I dropped my act entirely. I looked Ashley directly in the eyes and told her that I knew everything: the forged will, the medication scheme, the guardianship petition, and the planned property sale. I told her I knew about her previous husbands and her history of elder abuse and fraud. Ashley's shock quickly turned to rage. She screamed that the house belonged to Marcus through Robert's real will and that I was a confused old woman who didn't understand legal documents. She claimed that everything she had done was to protect me from my own poor judgment and declining mental abilities. When I told her I had evidence of her crimes recorded on audio and video, Ashley became threatening. She said I was having a psychotic episode and that she would have me committed to a psychiatric facility immediately for everyone's safety. She claimed that no one would believe the word of a mentally incompetent woman against solid medical and legal documentation. Ashley pulled out her cell phone and called 911, reporting that I was having a severe psychiatric crisis and was potentially dangerous to myself and others. She told the emergency operator that I was making paranoid accusations and threatening to harm family members. She requested immediate psychiatric intervention and possible involuntary commitment. When police officers arrived, Ashley showed them Dr. Brennan's medical evaluations and Mr. Zimmer's competency assessment. She explained that I was suffering from rapid onset dementia and had been growing increasingly paranoid and delusional. She demanded that I be taken to a psychiatric facility for immediate evaluation and treatment. Just as the officers were about to escort me from my own home, I produced my recording device and played back Ashley's conversation with Marcus about the guardianship timeline and property sale. The officers were confused by the contradictory evidence and requested that both Ashley and I come to the police station the following morning to provide formal statements. That evening, Ashley packed her belongings and moved out of Marcus's apartment, taking him with her to a hotel across town. Before leaving, she gave me an ultimatum: I could sign over the house voluntarily by Monday morning, or she would proceed with the guardianship case and have me permanently committed to a psychiatric institution. Ashley told me that she had enough medical and legal documentation to prove my incompetence in court, and that fighting her would only result in expensive legal bills and public humiliation. She claimed that cooperation was my only option for maintaining any dignity in this situation. She warned me that resisting her would be futile and potentially dangerous for my health. She reminded me that I was an isolated elderly woman with documented mental health issues, while she had professional support from doctors and lawyers who would testify about my condition. As Ashley drove away that night, I realized that the next 12 hours would determine whether I kept my home and freedom or lost everything to this elaborate criminal conspiracy. Ashley had shown me the full extent of her ruthlessness, and I knew she would stop at nothing to complete her plan. I called Janet and told her about the day's events. She advised me to expect some kind of desperate action from Ashley before Monday morning. Cornered criminals often made reckless decisions that could provide the evidence needed to expose their crimes completely. Janet positioned surveillance equipment around my property and arranged for backup investigators to monitor Ashley's hotel. She also contacted Detective Ray Coleman at Portland Police Department, briefing him about the elder abuse case and requesting patrol car surveillance of my neighborhood. I spent that night preparing for whatever Ashley might try next, knowing that this battle was far from over. Sunday morning at 4:30, I called Detective Coleman and reported an imminent break-in attempt at my home. I explained that my daughter-in-law had threatened to force entry to my property and was likely to arrive with accomplices claiming to have legal authority to enter. Detective Coleman positioned his patrol car across the street from my house with backup units waiting nearby. Janet's surveillance cameras were recording from multiple angles, capturing everything that was about to unfold. At exactly 5 in the morning, Ashley's car pulled into my driveway, followed by a white van with fake Locksmith company logos on the sides. 2 men got out of the van wearing matching work shirts with Portland Lock and Key printed on the backs, though I could see they were actually Ashley's cousins Danny and Rick Sullivan, wearing costumes they had purchased online. Ashley marched to my front door and began pounding with both fists, screaming that the house belonged to Marcus and demanding immediate entry. She shouted about my mental incompetence and claimed to have a court order requiring me to open the door, though no such order existed. Neighbors began appearing at their windows and front doors, drawn by Ashley's loud accusations and dramatic performance. Ashley played to her audience, crying about her sick mother-in-law, who wouldn't accept professional help and was endangering herself through stubborn refusal to cooperate. When I didn't answer her demands, Ashley directed the fake locksmiths to drill out my front door lock. The sound of power tools at dawn brought more neighbors outside, and Ashley continued her performance, describing my alleged dementia symptoms and expressing fear for my safety. What Ashley didn't realize was that every word and action was being recorded in high definition by Janet's hidden cameras. Detective Coleman was documenting everything from his patrol car, building a criminal case against Ashley and her accomplices. As the drilling reached its final stages and my lock was about to be destroyed, I heard a car door slam in my driveway. Through my peephole, I could see Marcus getting out of a taxi, his face pale with shock, as he realized what Ashley was doing to his mother's home. Marcus had arrived because I had called him directly at 3 in the morning, playing him recordings of Ashley's conversations about the life insurance policy and her plans to have me killed. For the first time, Marcus heard Ashley's true voice, without the loving manipulation she used when she knew he was listening. I had also played Marcus the recordings of Ashley discussing her previous husbands and her methods for stealing their assets. When Marcus heard Ashley laughing about how easy it had been to convince Donald Chen's children that their father's death was accidental, he finally understood what kind of woman he had married. At 5:15, just as the drill broke through my lock mechanism completely, I suddenly opened the door. Standing behind me was Marcus, who had entered through the back door using his key. His face showed a mixture of horror, shame, and determination as he confronted the scene Ashley had created. The gathered neighbors, the fake locksmiths, and Ashley herself stared in shock at Marcus's presence. Ashley began stammering explanations about protecting me from my own confusion, but Marcus cut her off by announcing loudly that he had never agreed to any guardianship petition or property sale. Marcus told the crowd of neighbors that Ashley had been forging his signature on legal documents and had lied to him about my mental condition. He explained that he had just learned about Ashley's criminal history and her plans to defraud his family out of their home and assets. Faced with exposure in front of witnesses, Ashley's careful facade completely cracked. She began screaming that I was worth more money dead than alive anyway, inadvertently confessing to the life insurance fraud in front of multiple witnesses and police recording equipment. Ashley shouted that she had worked too hard planning this scheme to let a confused old woman and her weak son destroy everything she had built. She revealed details about the medication tampering the falsified medical records and the planned property sale that she had never intended to admit publicly. Detective Coleman stepped forward from his patrol car and announced that Ashley was under arrest for elder abuse fraud conspiracy and attempted breaking and entering. The fake locksmiths tried to run, but were quickly apprehended by backup officers who had been positioned around the neighborhood. As Ashley was handcuffed and placed in a police car, she continued screaming threats about what would happen to me in court, claiming that her medical documentation would prove my incompetence regardless of Marcus's testimony. But Ashley had no idea that her entire criminal network was being arrested simultaneously across Portland. While Ashley was being processed at Portland Police Headquarters, Detective Coleman coordinated arrests of her co-conspirators across the city. Dr. Patricia Brennan was taken into custody at her clinic, where investigators found evidence of multiple fraudulent medical evaluations and illegal prescription schemes targeting elderly patients. Harold Zimmer was arrested at his law office, where police discovered files documenting his involvement in suspicious guardianship cases spanning 5 years. His computer contained email communications with Ashley, detailing their planned timeline for stealing my assets and dividing the proceeds. The fake locksmiths Danny and Rick Sullivan were charged as accomplices in the break-in attempt. Under questioning, they revealed that Ashley had paid them $5,000 each to help her reclaim property that belonged to her husband, though they claimed they hadn't understood the full scope of her criminal scheme. Janet's comprehensive investigation had provided police with overwhelming evidence of the conspiracy. Her hidden cameras captured Ashley's confession about the life insurance policy. Her recorded conversations revealed the premeditated nature of the scheme, and her background research connected Ashley to similar crimes in other states. Within 72 hours of Ashley's arrest, investigators in Nevada and Washington reopened cases related to her previous husbands. Donald Chen's death was reclassified from accidental to homicide based on new evidence about Ashley's insurance fraud patterns and medication tampering techniques. William Rodriguez, Ashley's second husband, was removed from the memory care facility where Ashley had imprisoned him. Medical evaluation revealed that his alleged dementia symptoms disappeared completely once the antipsychotic medications were eliminated from his system. William had been drugged into incapacity for over 3 years, while Ashley controlled his finances and sold his assets. The legal consequences for Ashley's criminal network were severe and comprehensive. Ashley herself was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison for elder abuse insurance fraud conspiracy and second-degree murder in Donald Chen's death. Her appeals were denied, and she would serve her full sentence without possibility of parole. Dr. Patricia Brennan received a 10-year sentence for medical fraud and lost her license to practice medicine permanently. Her clinic was shut down, and investigators found evidence that she had falsified medical records for dozens of elderly patients, enabling family members to steal their assets through fraudulent guardianship cases. Harold Zimmer was disbarred and sentenced to 8 years in prison for legal malpractice and conspiracy to commit fraud. His law practice was dissolved, and his victims were awarded substantial settlements from his malpractice insurance policies. Ashley's accomplice cousins received 3-year sentences for their role in the break-in attempt and conspiracy. They also faced civil lawsuits from other elderly victims whose homes they had helped Ashley access through similar fake locksmith schemes. Marcus struggled with overwhelming guilt about his role in the conspiracy, even though he had been manipulated by Ashley's lies. He moved back to Portland and entered therapy to understand how he had been deceived and to rebuild his relationship with me. Through counseling, Marcus learned that Ashley had been using classic manipulation techniques to isolate him from me and convince him that stealing from his mother was actually an act of protection. She had gradually convinced him that I was becoming dangerous to myself and that only quick intervention could prevent me from losing everything through poor decision-making. Marcus began working part-time maintaining my property while building his own electrical contracting business. The experience of nearly losing his family taught him the importance of direct communication and trust. He started visiting me regularly, not to check on my competence, but to rebuild the relationship that Ashley had tried to destroy. 6 months after Ashley's arrest, Marcus met Sarah Thompson, a registered nurse who worked in the geriatric unit at Portland General Hospital. Sarah helped him understand the medical fraud that Ashley had perpetrated and taught him to recognize signs of elder abuse that he had missed during the conspiracy. Marcus and Sarah's relationship developed slowly based on honest communication and shared values about family loyalty and integrity. Sarah became a trusted friend to me as well, providing medical expertise when I had questions about legitimate health concerns. I recovered all assets that Ashley had attempted to steal and received additional compensation through civil lawsuits against Dr. Brennan and Harold Zimmer. My home remained mine-free and clear, and I regained complete control over my finances and medical care. The experience transformed me from a trusting widow into an advocate for elder abuse prevention. I began working with Detective Coleman's department to train police officers in recognizing medical fraud schemes and guardianship scams targeting elderly victims. I also partnered with Janet's investigation firm to develop educational programs for seniors about protecting themselves from family members who might attempt financial exploitation. Our presentations reached hundreds of older adults throughout Oregon, helping them recognize warning signs and know their legal rights. 8 months after the trial ended, I met Frank Wilson, a retired high school history teacher whose wife had died 2 years earlier. Frank and I met at a support group for widowed seniors, where we bonded over stories about our late spouses and our experiences navigating life alone. Frank appreciated my independence and respected the strength I had shown in fighting Ashley's conspiracy. He loved hearing stories about my Victorian house and the memories Robert and I had created there. Unlike Ashley, Frank never suggested that I should sell my home or questioned my ability to live independently. Our relationship developed gradually and naturally based on genuine affection and shared interests rather than financial manipulation. Frank moved into the guest bedroom of my house after we had been dating for 6 months, and we began planning a small wedding for the following spring. Marcus fully supported my relationship with Frank and appreciated having another positive male influence in our family. Frank's presence helped heal some of the trust issues that Ashley's betrayal had created, showing Marcus that healthy relationships were based on respect rather than control. Today, I wake up each morning in the home that Robert and I built together, surrounded by memories and possibilities for the future. Ashley sits in a federal prison having lost everything through her own greed, while I live freely in the house she tried to steal. The Victorian home that Ashley coveted is now filled with laughter again. Marcus visits every Sunday for dinner, often bringing Sarah and their new baby daughter, Emma. Frank tends Robert's rose garden and has added his own vegetable patch behind the garage. I learned that trusting people doesn't make you weak, but trusting blindly without watching for warning signs can be dangerous. Real family members protect each other and build each other up, while predators use family connections to exploit trust and steal security. Most importantly, I discovered that even at 67, I was stronger and more resourceful than anyone had given me credit for. When my back was against the wall and everything I valued was threatened, I found the courage and intelligence to fight back against criminals who thought I was an easy target. Ashley's greatest mistake was underestimating the fierce determination of a woman defending her home and family. She learned too late that this supposedly helpless old widow was capable of bringing down her entire criminal enterprise. Have you ever had someone close to you betray your trust in a way that completely changed how you see relationships? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below about how we can protect ourselves and our loved ones from people who use family connections to cause harm. If this story resonated with you, please like this video, subscribe to stay connected with our community, and share this with anyone who might benefit from hearing about the warning signs of elder abuse. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it reminds you that you're never too old to stand up for what's right and fight for the life you deserve.